Hi, I'm Matt with Main Street Medina. Won't you join us today for another episode of Medina Minute, where we'll sit down and talk with some friends and familiar faces of the community and learn a little bit more about the people that make Medina, Medina. Good morning. Today we're here with Dan Walker from the Western Reserve Preservation Company, a new company in town at least. But Dan, we want to learn a little bit more about you. So tell us, how did you end up in Medina, Ohio?
Well, I grew up in Wadsworth, Ohio, graduated from high school there, and I still have mom and dad who live in Wadsworth. So after retiring from the Army a few years ago, I and my family decided to move back up here to be closer to them.
Nice.
And that's how we arrived back here.
Yeah. How? What did you do? You retired from the Army. What was your role in the Army?
I retired as a field artillery officer.
All right.
Yeah, so field artillery, and then I did some intelligence analyst work before that.
Yeah. Very cool. Tell me a little bit about, so you're a guy that loves old houses or old buildings. Where does that come from? Is that something that you studied as a kid? You were just fascinated by architecture and history?
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I take it back to my grandparents.
Okay.
They had a 1830s farm down near Wadsworth, and my grandfather did a lot of restoration on that house, and my mother was in high school while he was doing that, so she helped him. And so I was around that sort of thing from a young age, and then my mom and dad both did a lot of work on houses that they bought.
Yeah.
And just growing up, when we went on vacation, we went to historical sites, battlefields, historically related things. So I've seen a lot of historical homes and grew to appreciate them over the years.
Yeah. So is that something that your grandfather taught you how to do things, or your parents did? So it's not something that we're born with. When I was growing up, my dad was very handy, and we started out building birdhouses. He wanted to teach me how to use tools. We built birdhouses, and then we'd start to design furniture, and then we built a little chicken coop, and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah.
How did you start that?
I'd say watching my grandfather, watching my dad and mom do things.
Yeah.
They would get my brother and I involved in stuff. I remember putting glass into windows at a young age, and learning by doing. And then just honestly, it's just my interest. You can go on YouTube and find out how to do anything.
Right.
And then I went to Belmont College to the historic building preservation program, got a degree through there.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's been just being around it and doing it with my parents, grandparents, and then a lot of it's me consciously trying to learn it.
Sure.
And then now I'm practicing it, so that's
nice. Where did you come up with the name Western Reserve Preservation Company? How did you come about that?
How did I come about that? Well,
because the reason I ask, it's very specific. Like, there's a lot of rehabbers out there or handymen, but this, just by name alone, kind of sets you a bar above.
Well, I specialize in historic preservation restoration, so I wanted something that indicated that right off the bat.
Sure.
Normally my customer base, I would say, is historically savvy. So this area of Ohio was historically called the Connecticut Western Reserve.
Right.
And I think it's still well known enough that putting that into my company's name kind of denotes that historical aspect. And then that's kind of where it came from with that.
Yeah. You said you specialize in window restoration, correct?
Yes. I'd say probably 50 to 60% of our work ends up being window restoration.
That's an arduous task. I mean, a lot of
It
people
is,
just
yeah.
say, forget it, we're going to put in new windows.
It is, yeah.
What is it within you that looks at that old window sash and you say, you know what, I'm going to fix this?
Well, I mean, you look at a home, and one of the first things you notice is the fenestration, the windows.
Right.
Whether they're, 6 foot tall, Victorian style windows or eyebrow windows in a Greek revival. Those aspects of the home kind of set it apart and give it character. And as soon as you start taking those away, putting replacement windows in, and it changes the look. You've probably seen the Victorians where the big old tall windows have been blocked off and little small windows have been put in there.
Drives me nuts.
It changes the whole look of the home.
Sure.
And I mean, these windows have lasted for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
In those houses. Granted, they could be in really bad shape, but so far I haven't seen a window we couldn't restore.
Nice, okay.
There might be some replacement of materials, but largely we try to maintain the existing materials. And I think a lot of people would like to keep their original windows, but
Sure.
it's hard to find people that will do it. And
Yeah.
there's 10 times as many, probably more than that, companies that are very actively trying to get you to replace your windows.
Sure.
So you're inundated with that. So I'm trying to provide an alternative. And
Yeah.
so I can't tell you how many people call and say, hey, I'm really glad to find you because I've been looking for somebody for a long time to do our windows and just haven't been able to find any.
Cool.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of my...
How many homes, how long have you had the business? You see, you retired from the Army, but how long have you had?
So officially, it was started June 2020, so I'm going on a year
Okay.
with it. And started off slow. Didn't intend to get into it, but it just kind of ballooned from helping a neighbor,
Yeah.
the Nolans.
Sure.
And that kind of got me into it. I wasn't intending to, but there's just such demand out there that
Yeah. Huge
I
demand.
couldn't ignore it.
How many houses have you worked on, do you think?
I mean, just since the business started, oh gosh, I'd say 10 to 15.
Okay. Okay.
A lot of my jobs are repeat customers, so
Sure.
I get a lot of the same job from the same house.
Do you have a favorite period of homes or a favorite style personally?
Well, initially I liked the old Greek revivals you see around here, the small farmhouse with the eyebrow windows. That's always been my perception of the classic historical home in this area. But most of my work is in the Victorian style, East Lake, 1870s vintage, and I've really grown to like that style because of the ornate architectural details, and that's kind of fun to work on.
I'm curious, Dan, what are your thoughts? I'm guessing you love historic architecture. You work on this, you appreciate it, you want to bring it back.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on current trends? Like, does it drive you nuts when everyone's painting their house dark gray and everyone's putting in white windows and subway tile? Are you more of let a property evolve with time and history, or keep it as original as possible?
Yeah, that's a very philosophical question. And you can ask 10 different historical preservationists, and they all might give you a slightly different answer.
Yeah. And
I personally believe that as you move into a house, I prefer to take it back to the historical nature. So if if I see a Victorian that's been opened up into the open concept, they weren't like that. They weren't
Doesn't
meant
your
to
heart
be,
just cringe a little
it cringes.
bit? Yeah.
Yes, it cringes. They were meant to be a compartmentalized home.
Right.
And they had walls and doors pretty much to every room. My house, Victorian, it's had that done, and every day I see that, I keep thinking, okay, when am I going to start fixing that and putting it back the way it
Sure.
originally was? But there again, my house has a 1911 addition front porch and vestibule to it. Didn't have that when it was first built. So that I'm not going to tear that down, because now that's history.
Right.
So I probably didn't answer your question.
No,
I don't even know if I know the answer to it. It's just a feeling when I see a house, you're like, that doesn't belong. This is the way it was.
No, it's
That's
an
the way I
interesting
want
point
it
to
be.
hear, especially what you said about your front porch. Your house was built, what'd you say, 1870s or 80s?
70s.
Originally, okay. And then 1911, a front porch was put on. So today, that's 110 years
Yeah,
old.
it's historical.
And
Yeah.
it's like, it's finding that balance of to what period do we take this back, or what has
Right.
become significant
Right.
on its own.
So you could look at it as opening up that house. That's the times of the day.
Right.
So
right.
maybe you ignore it. I don't.
And I'm curious, Dan, what do you think it is in us, people that like old houses? What is it that makes us want to take them back? I'm a preservationist. I love restoring a house back to as close to its original intent, or as much as I can figure out. But where does that come from? I mean, what in us says, I don't know that many people live in a truly restored house. I mean, literally we would have outhouses and gaslight. What is it about history in us that resonates to that depth?
Boy, that's a deep question also. So I would say, all I can do is say personally.
Yes, absolutely.
I like to restore back to the original, mainly because historic homes and buildings are being torn down at an astronomical rate across the country. They get to a certain state of decay, and they're either slated for demolition by cities or people that want to just build a new building on it.
Yeah.
So you're losing a lot of historical fabric in our society. Taking them back to where they used to be, to me, is almost like trying to preserve that moment in time.
Sure.
And the less you do of that, the less we're going to have it. So I do think it's important to pick a moment in history of that home and just say that's the way it's going to be, and you just don't change it after that. I mean, there are some exceptions. There's safety considerations. Kitchens and bathrooms, those are two things that most people are going to say, well, I got to have a modern appliances and a modern feel in my kitchen or bathroom. So
yeah, there is a certain line that we do draw in the sand.
It has to be livable,
right.
But at the same time, there's certain things that the more you change, the less of it you have left.
Right.
And eventually, you get 10 owners, each owner changes one more thing. All you're going to have is the framing left in the building, if that.
Yeah, good point.
And then it's not, is it still historical at that point?
Right. Do you have a favorite building here on the square or in town?
Yep. It's right down the street. It's a mansard roof, Second Empire.
The Brenner Hotel? Yeah.
Is that, okay. I always admire that one. That's a classic. And Second Empire, I mean, they only built those for a very short period of time during the Grant administration, pretty much. So when you see when I see those, they really stand out in my eye.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You had mentioned as a kid going on trips with your family, you would visit battlefields, historic sites.
Yeah.
Is that something that you and your wife continue with your kids, or do the kids not care about the history?
Well, I think they would. We have not taken our kids to a battlefield and we really haven't done the things I did growing up.
Okay.
We haven't taken the long vacations to historical sites.
Yeah.
Should we? Yes, I think we should. And I really think we will once pandemic is behind us.
Of course.
We'll start doing more of that. We have been to some of that sort of thing, but they're old enough now where I think they're going to appreciate it.
Okay. Does your wife share your passion for old houses and stuff?
Well, she is passionate about it in a very supportive way, so I appreciate that. But yeah, I think our next house will probably be more modern and we'll have less restoration projects involved.
Yeah. I mean, old houses are never ending. It's something always needs help.
Yeah.
Wow.
I knew that when I bought the house too, but I thought that was going to be a challenge.
I think people look at buildings as permanent structures. Like once it's built, it's done. But I don't think people realize this is all organic material and they have life cycles as well. And they change and they settle and sag like we do.
Yeah.
And they need help.
One of the beautiful things about historic buildings though is they're very repairable and restorable, and they're not built to be throwaway. So like nowadays you get some double glass vinyl windows. They only have a warranty of 15, maybe 20 years if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And I've got some in my house and they're already starting to fall apart.
Really?
The wooden ones, I mean, they lasted for 100 years.
Yeah.
And can last that much longer with basic maintenance.
Just maintenance, yeah. What's the hardest project that you've had to date? Like what's one that you took on either in your own home or for a client and you just kind of shook your head and said, man, what am I doing?
Well, I've done a project for a home in Ashland, and it's really a remodeling job for a 1970s, 80s style bathroom and closet that was added on to this Italianate home.
Yeah.
So legitimately it needed a bathroom and probably a closet because closets in Italianate homes were about that
pretty
wide.
teeny.
So you barely get your shirt in there. So they wanted it to look more appropriate to the home.
Okay.
So he bought a lot of salvaged architectural like stained glass windows, doors.
Oh, wow.
And so we totally remodeled the outside, mainly the outside look of that closet and then the bathroom wall. And we installed East Lake style closet doors and 3 stained glass windows. And anyway, that was challenging.
So we kind of said, here's a bunch of ingredients, now make me a cake.
Yep. So he gave me the parts, and then I had to figure out how to put them so they would work, which is challenging.
It is a challenge.
It's not impossible, but it's not our everyday project.
Yeah. Do you have hobbies outside of your vocation, or does it pretty much consume either what you're doing for work or what you're learning or what you're studying?
I mean, I do gardening.
Okay.
We were just talking how I was in the garden yesterday trying to get in the crop for the next year. So I tinker with that. I wouldn't say, I'm not a good gardener. My grandfather did, my dad's done it, and I've been around it again. So I do it, and it's fun.
Are you more like a vegetables, like you're planting corn and green beans and squash and stuff?
Vegetable garden, yeah. My wife is the flowers, and she makes the yard look beautiful.
Yeah.
So she does that side. I just try to grow a tomato once in a while. Or a cucumber.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you, so with your company, I want to talk a little bit more about what you do. You focus on window restoration, but what else do you do? I know you and I are working on the brickwork on my house. What do you love to do, or what else do you like to do?
Well, stained glass. We do that. We just got a job doing a stained glass window for a East Lake door.
Nice.
So the glass is missing. They wanted a stained glass. So we're doing like new work, but it's based on historical styles.
Okay.
So it's legitimately, it could be a East Lake style stained glass window for the door. So we do that. We do stained glass repair. We can do plaster repair. Most old houses have plaster and lath.
Yeah.
And a drywall person could probably do all right repairing it, but we repair it as an old traditional plaster would repair it. We do the repointing of old masonry, and we know the difference between historic mortar and bricks and stone versus the new style. Like you can't use old mortar, you can't use new mortar with old masonry.
Yeah.
So we know those differences in the uniqueness. We do mill work. We're doing a lot of porch work. But really anything historically related we can do.
Okay.
That training at Belmont College, it was training in traditional trade skills from that time period, historic time period. So it's the slate roofing, the flat seam copper roofing, the wood shingle roofs, plaster, stained glass, on and on. You can learn it.
I'm curious, Dan, how did you end up in the Army? Like, was that something that, going into school, you thought, this is just something I want to do? Was it more for education? Was it pride in your country?
Probably all of the above. I mean, my brother and I, from a very young age, were playing Army.
Okay.
That was like our go-to playtime was we get on our little Army outfits and we play Army like every time we're outside. That's what we did. And you grow up watching the John Wayne Iwo Jima.
Sure.
Sands of Iwo Jima, and you're listening to your grandpa's World War II stories, and both your uncles my uncles were in Vietnam, and so it was something I had in my head that I had to do.
Gotcha.
And so eventually at age 27, I was like, man, if I don't do it now, I don't think they're going to take me much longer. So
very cool.
So I bit the bullet, and 22 years later.
Nice.
Yep.
Dan, what do you hope from your family, your work, your career? What do you hope is the legacy that you'll leave?
Legacy. Well, my legacy is that I want to I'd like to help the Medina area preserve some of their historic fabric as much as possible. I'm not looking to be a Fortune 500 company or anything.
Yeah.
I just want to do some good work for people that are looking for help restoring their historic home or
that sounds really
whatever
cool.
it is.
That sounds awesome.
I mean, I feel like I'm just providing a service that isn't here right now. So I'm here if people need me.
Yeah. Dan, if people want to get in contact with you, just Google Western Reserve Preservation Company. Is that the best way? Go to your website.
I have a website that should pop up, and I'm on Instagram, Facebook, if you want to see our latest projects. I don't post every week necessarily, but every couple weeks I post something.
All right, cool. Thank you so much for sitting down with me and sharing a little bit about you.
Thanks for having me.
We look forward to seeing the work that you're doing in the community and see keeping these old places up and looking good.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.